listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. So sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Good evening, guys, gals, and pals. It's once again time for This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. I'm Hobbs, he's Ben, and tonight we've got the Lebanon Jon, co-host of the occasional Moonbase Live here on Rumble, with our other friend Harrison Smith. We're going to talk about the news in this clowny world we're in. So, kicking us off, John, how are we doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's an honor.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, John. And Hobbs told me you're coming on. It's like, well, fuck it. Let's scrap everything, get into Middle East history and geopolitics of Israel.
Yeah, anytime. That's my thing. But we can cover whatever. But yeah, Middle East is the hot topic lately for sure.
Right. But I sent a list of stuff that we could go over tonight. Of course, the Israel-Gaza conflict is, as usual, seems to take up a lion's share of everybody's time because, God forbid we talk about anything else. Just can't help but take up the lion's share of everybody's time. But there are a lot of things that have been going on this week, and I managed to jot down a few of them. If you guys want to jump right into the Middle East stuff, or do you want to go through the other things kind of lightning round and then come back around to it?
Yeah, probably that.
Lightning round?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing that kicked off was over the weekend. Real quick, you had the three stooges of the Eurozone, Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, and Merz, the new chancellor of Germany, were all riding on a train, and some reporters busted in, and it looked like they were doing a little Peruvian marching powder.
A little coca leaf.
Yeah.
The weird thing was it looked like those reporters were invited in ahead of time. So, I don't know what was going on there.
It was so weird because some people are saying, oh, it really, didn't look like cocaine, but they looked so guilty. They just looked like they got caught with their pants down.
Yeah. I think that was probably the most damning bit of evidence because, it's the footage is kind of grainy and it's a little shaky cam because the people were just coming into the room, but it was just like oh shit, if he reached over and he grabbed that, and then the chancellor grabbed the little, what looked like a spoon. They said it was a coffee stirrer, but it's like looking around, where's your coffee? This is a coffee stirrer. There's no coffee on the table at all. So, what are you doing, guys?
So
there's kind of hey, come in. We're just talking about Ukraine.
Yeah, so a spoon, right? So a spoon doesn't mean cocaine. A spoon means they're freebasing like solid rocks of crack.
And considering the fact that they actually want to go to a hot war with Russia, you'd have to be smoking crack to think that that's a good idea.
Yeah,
especially without the U.S.
Does Macron have a history of coming off like a crack addict, like Zelensky does? The interviews, he's like clenching his jaw over and over, and he's all rocking back and forth.
Yeah, at times in the beginning when Macron first came out, there was definitely some high energy, maybe some manic aspects to it, and we know these guys are controlled, and it's like the classic, like pimp gangster strategy to just, have your I don't know what you would call it, your prostitutes, I guess, hooked on some heavy drug, and you can cut off the supply or something. I mean, who knows what's going on there? But a spoon is not for cocaine. A spoon is for freebasing.
Yeah, Macron's wife could be his pimp, I guess.
For sure. It's some pretty dark stuff. It's definitely clown world level weird stuff.
Yeah, I would probably need to be on some heavy self-medication if my wife was a tranny that was 25 years older than me and potentially my biological father.
Oh my gosh. Poor Macron, the real victim of all of it.
Yes, but a former Goldman Sachs banker is not one that garners a lot of sympathy.
No, not at all.
But yeah, and then the other aspect of it is like who did they just finish visiting? Zelensky. What is Zelensky notorious for? Being a cokehead.
It's so true. So they just mixed up the coke, man. They're just like learning from American culture, man. They're whipping up them rocks, I guess.
Yeah. No, you see, we had to we confiscated this from Zelensky for his own good because he's got a problem.
Hunter taught him that trick.
Hunter, I was just gonna say, I was like, wait a second, didn't Hunter literally get caught smoking crack? So like, there is a precedent here of these elites being on the crack. So,
Yeah. Like all of this just goes around and around in a circle, and it's all connected together. And it's the fact that our leaders are all degenerate, child raping, Malthusian death cultists.
yeah, definitely, it's crazy, man. They're pretty much entirely fake, just like puppets, just like a face, just like a front running face kind of actor type position.
Yeah. So that was an interesting thing for a Monday morning
to
for
kick off the week.
Yeah, to kick off the week. It's,
They got busted.
Yep, got busted doing the Peruvian marching powder. So another big one that took on the news all of like 10 minutes was Trump talking about putting some price controls on prescription medication. That's not really price controls. It's more along the lines that the U.S.'s medical insurance industry is no longer going to be subsidizing the rest of the world's health care.
Wow, that's a good way to put it. So basically, the preferred nation clause is that, or whatever you want to call it, is that he's going to stop the United States from being charged significantly more than other countries. And so the way the pharmaceutical companies could adapt to that is they could just try to charge more in these other countries. The problem is these other countries, because of the strength of the dollar, and once you switch it to their currency, they can't afford a very high price tag. So Donald Trump kind of has them by the balls here with a single piece of legislation. They're kind of screwed either way.
Yeah, I don't know how often you watch our show, John, or if you do at all, but like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were talking to another friend of mine, and I coined this term called "we can take it" mentality. And
Nice.
this is just another aspect to the "we can take it" mentality that the United States has been coasting along on since mainly since the end of the Second World War, but really since the end of the Cold War when everything collapsed. And so uh, basically what it amounts to is like the United States has all of these like little iniquities thrust upon us. Things like illegal immigration, this thing with the prescription medication, other countries tariffing our goods and us not tariffing their goods in response to it. All of these little things, and the whole mentality is like, well, yeah, but we can take it. We're the United States.
Mm,
We can take it, and
yes.
it's bad for us, but it's not really bad for us, and it'll help them out and help lift them up. So as long as somebody's getting out a little bit ahead, we'll take this. We'll eat this cost. And it's after 80 years of we can take it, we can't take it anymore. And I think that that's just another aspect of it. We're paying through the nose for our prescription meds and medical everything so that the rest of the world can coast on easy street. And now that Trump is doing this, it's going to kind of level the playing field. That seems to be Trump's economic modus operandi, is like, let's just level the playing field between everybody, and then we can kind of tinker around on the margins for the people that actually need it. And the fact that he's doing that and the rest of the world isn't able to live off of our largesse anymore has the rest of the world pissed.
Absolutely, man. That's beautiful. No, yeah, we can't take it anymore. A bunch of Americans are putting their grocery bills on 20% interest credit cards. So no, like, we definitely can't. It's time to start, counting the pennies the other way and getting money back in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the drug companies had some limp-dicked response to it in their press release, but you could tell they were like, all right, yeah, we've been fucking you.
Jeez Louise, that is insane, man. Yeah, they were saying that 75% of the profits of these pharmaceutical companies come from the United States market. That
Mhm.
and of course the United States is the only country that allows them to advertise as if I can go out and buy the prescription drug. It doesn't even make sense that they're advertising for drugs that I have to then go ask my doctor to
Yeah,
prescribe.
well, I mean, that's just so they can float money to media companies.
Right, they can influence a lot of stuff with that. And like, if you watch dinosaur media like Fox News, like, I don't know, 80% of the ads are pharmaceutical companies. It's, if that goes away, I mean, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. And that's the thing that Donald Trump really represents, is like a lot of people losing a lot of money, and the majority of Americans are like, hey, maybe it's time, it's kind of screw you thing. Just enough riding on our backs.
Yeah, I don't know if you have kids, John, and I know Hobbs does, but one of the fun things for me is my kids are older, and my daughter, she's 19. I was watching TV with her, and a drug commercial came on, and she just out of nowhere, she's like, "What is this about?" She's like, "Am I supposed to ask my doctor about it?" And I said, "Oh, do I got a tale for you?" So I
That's
explained it all to
ridiculous.
her, and she's just like, "That's really going on?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's why no other country in the world has those ads."
Makes no sense. I almost think that it's actually like trying to do name recognition to doctors. Like the target of the ad might be doctors. So then when the sales rep goes to the doctor's like, "Yeah, I guess this must be pretty popular. I've seen the ad. Okay, fine." Because in my experience, you can't tell the doctor what to prescribe. Like that's not really a thing. Doctors are kind of set with like particular brands that they're going to prescribe, and they don't really mess with like the competitors because the sales rep locked them in on that particular brand.
Kind of
So
a scattershot way to get into the psyche of doctors. So
yes, that's what it seems like to me, because it's the doctors that are really making the call as to what products they're going to stock and what products they're going to push. The customer, the average American person, if you go to your doctor and say, I don't want this brand, I want this brand, they're going to just look at you like, maybe, but I recommend this. It doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, but if they didn't advertise on Fox News, how am I supposed to know that Merck and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson have come out with a new geriatric boner pill?
Dude, life-changing stuff. And then
Yeah.
some people out there, they have this, they believe in like this kind of like mystical thing of like manifesting. And I don't really subscribe to manifesting 100%, but I definitely believe in like bad vibes. And I got to tell you, it's nothing but bad vibes when it's like side effects include sudden death, seismic diarrhea, implosion, like chronic illness. I'm like, man, I don't want to hear all this. Like,
I know some of those. It's like for a very targeted skin disease, and the side effects are uncontrolled diarrhea, liver failure. It's like, geez, I'll just look like a leper. Fuck that.
yeah, it's just putting out bad vibes in general, just constantly, just talking about all these bad things. It's just like, yeah, I don't even want to hear this. Like, it's just, I prefer if they stop that. But this would be, without it, like we shouldn't underplay how big of a change that would be. Like that would really be a massive change to the media landscape if all that money for all that ad space went away. Like a lot of people are going to make a lot less money with what Donald Trump is doing, with going after these pharmaceutical companies, and 75% of their money comes from price gouging Americans. So this is pretty big stuff. I mean, if they would probably try to kill him or impeach him or overthrow him, but they kind of already have, and it didn't even work. So maybe they've given up.
Speaking of like manifesting and bad vibes and all of the trying to kill Trump and failing, it just reminds me of this headline that I saw where it was like witches on Reddit are complaining that all of their hexes are seeming to bounce off of Trump like he has a shield on him, and I'm just like, yes, it's because what you believe is nonsense, but
It's not working. It's not working. Yeah, I wonder why. Either it would never. It has. Yeah. Either it's completely fake, or there's a higher power, and this is destiny and God's will. So we'll
yep,
see.
yep. So, yeah, so expect some prescription drug prices to come down in the near future, hopefully. Now, if we can just hey, you know what? Kind of on the next thing here that I've got on the list with Trump's deal with China and the tariffs coming down, I was going to say, like, if the prescription drug prices end up getting lowered through this legislation, but the majority of the medical precursors that we use to manufacture the drugs in this country are coming from China, would the would the incoming tariffs level that off, or are we still going to be paying ridiculous prices? But no, in all seriousness, the deal with China, they're like 145% reciprocal tariffs that we were slapping on each other. China is in a pretty bad way right now. You're not hearing about it on the news a lot, but there are workers that are suddenly, their shifts are being cut or their paycheck is being cut because Americans just aren't buying their cheap plastic bullshit anymore. So the workers are going on strike or going on protest. It's a very tense civil situation over in China right now. So Trump, the delegate from the Trump administration, sat down with the delegate from the Chinese administration, and they hashed out a deal where I think it was something like the Chinese are going to tariff our stuff at 10%, and we're going to tariff their stuff at 30.
Nice.
So
Not bad.
Well, I
yeah,
never saw any prices rise on stuff from Chinese
Oh,
goods.
if you ask a liberal, the prices have skyrocketed because of tariffs that haven't even gone into effect yet somehow.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
went to get a TV recently. And fucking 75-inch TV was like $250.
That's crazy, man.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously, there's not a tariff issue there.
My wife was complaining the other day about how the stuff on uh, Temu and Amazon have gone up, but if the tariffs haven't actually gone into effect, then maybe that was just Temu and Amazon deciding that it now would be a perfect time to prey on people's ignorances and raise the prices so that they could scam a little bit more money off the top.
That's exactly right. That is 100% how it works. My family, I grew up working in the gas station business, and I can tell you, people charge as much as they can get away with, obviously. And so the excuse in the media, that's the thing about this liberal media. They're totally counterproductive because they've been running these scare tactics about the tariffs making the prices go up before the tariffs even came into effect. And what they don't realize is they just gave cover, psychological blanket
Mm-hmm.
cover for these
Yep.
companies to raise the price, and then they'll just blame it on Trump. Well, they're definitely going to raise the price now. I mean, why would they not?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you brought that up because, like you said, like in the gas station business, you'll charge what you can, but I guess that in a way, the Amazon and Temu's and other mail order stuff is in the same sort of sphere as the gas station business because you don't charge what you don't make your prices based off of the cost of oil now. You make your you base your prices off of the projected price of oil at your future resupply. It's a futures market.
Right. You're
And
going to re-up. Exactly. It's a cyclical, constant re-upping.
yeah,
So there's a little bit of futures trading involved where you're planning in advance. Mainly if there's a sudden shift in price, you want to adjust it. But it's the classic phrase that everyone will tell you, which is that it's quick to go up, but it's slow to come down. They
right.
really milk it on the down. If the price of oil suddenly dropped, let's say 50%. Gas stations don't drop their prices 50%. They go 10% every week.
Mhm.
But if
Yeah.
it's a sudden increase in gas in price, then it's just like
Yep.
immediately overnight. So this whole thing, they're going to milk it as much as they possibly can. And Donald Trump actually came out and just said that Walmart has made billions of dollars of profit, like even over projections in the last quarter. Like they're beating their projections. They're doing better than they expected. And now they're trying to pass the 30% tariff or whatever it is to the consumer. And Donald Trump is saying, look, me and your customers are watching you, Walmart. You need to eat this 30% drop. You need to absorb the tariff and you don't need to pass it to the consumer. And he literally said that he's watching them almost like in a threatening and a menacing way because as much as Donald Trump is a capitalist and we're all, capitalist and free market guys, at the end of the day, a total free market, a total free for all leads to in a global economy leads to international corporations, milking the United States as a cash cow, and they're abusing the citizens of the United States. So Donald Trump is doing technically these are not capitalist type behaviors. These are like technically it'd be called syndicatism or like something.
Sure.
It's not. But it's good. It's nationalist, protectivist, nativist policies. These are good policies. So I'm a big Ron Paul guy, and so I love free market and all that. But I also have a minor in global business, and so I've studied the global economy, and so you can't apply the concepts of free market when it comes to the global economy because that's different now. Because now, if it's truly a free market, then there's really no reason why you don't use slave labor in China and just milk the American consumer as a cash cow, and that's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, but in a free market, we wouldn't be subsidizing Walmart employees with food stamps and housing vouchers
Right.
so that they can pay them piss wages.
No,
They'd
that's
have
that's
to they'd
not
have
free
to up
market.
they'd have to up their wages so that they could actually employees would
Live.
actually work there. but they
Yeah.
pay him shit, and our government picks up the slack for him.
That's right, man. Just if you completely leave everything alone, a lot of things would improve. But it's kind of like when you mess with nature in one way, then it kicks back with like a boomerang effect, and now you're going to have to do something for the imbalance that you've caused the other way. So if you leave everything completely alone, in theory, everything would be fine. But they've messed with it with these socialist practices of welfare and free stuff in general. Those are socialist practices. And so, yeah, that is effectively a subsidy for the corporation. That's a great point.
Well, my other question too, you said you're in the gas station business. Is gas their money, uh, their big seller, or is it actually like White Monsters and Twinkies?
It depends, man. The Pakistani and Indian guys, they sell the gas pretty much at cost, and they make a 30% margin on grocery sales.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why that is foolish and is really poisoning the market is because they're making the whole market have such a low price. And the reason that's bad is because the gas station owner is expected to pay out of pocket to upgrade all the pumps, the dispensers, about every 10 years. So, like, at first it was credit cards, then it's credit cards with a chip. Now it's tap to pay. Every single time that happened, we have to spend like $50,000 to $100,000 out of our pocket to upgrade to that new technology that has more cybersecurity or enables tap to pay or whatever it is. And so these Pakistani and Indian, no offense, I mean, I love everybody. I'm just telling you how it is in the market. These Pakistani and Indian guys who run these gas stations with like 20 partners, their whole family gets involved. They sell the gas at cost. What ends up happening is when it comes time to upgrade the pumps, they don't have it. They don't have it. They don't have that money. And so they just never upgrade the pumps until the pumps just go into disrepair, and they just stop selling gas. And they just change to like just a corner store or a cell phone repair store, or they put slot machines and gambling type stuff. It just doesn't work. So selling at cost is like is ridiculous, and it's their business strategy, but it's not a good business strategy. It's very short sighted.
Our my local Indian gas station turned into a liquor store. So.
Exactly, and they do that because they don't have $100,000 to upgrade the pumps, but they're required. It's not optional. You literally have to. So you can't. There's no way economically. There's no way financially that you're going to have $100,000 to upgrade these pumps, and you've been selling the gas at cost for those 10 years. That's just not going to work.
Sorry to get in the weeds on that. I just wondered.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. They're ruining the market. I mean, these people don't run business right.
Yeah. I've heard that too, that the gas is kind of like a side hustle, and it's the stuff on the inside that the real money is made on. That's it. Interesting to hear that confirmed. Okay, so the next thing I got on the list was a whopping a veritable army of white South Africans, if you believe the left wing media, a veritable army of racist, foaming at the mouth South African white people have been brought in by the Trump administration and given fast track citizenship. Of course, it was 59 of them. And
59. They took our jobs. Like
yeah. 59 South African whites were brought in and granted asylum because of the political and racial violence in South Africa. It was mainly intact families, wife, husband, and kids. And there was one girl that seems to be like the face of it. And it's like this really good looking blonde girl. And it says that a few more shipments of migrants like this and white women or white liberal women will be burning down DHS offices and constructing a mile-high border wall.
No more asylum. They'll be against asylum forever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So Harrison has been ahead of the curve on the South Africa issue. He told me years ago, and Harrison's been really good on this one. He's been telling me that the Marxist vision for the future is this really anti-white, really disgustingly racist, very hyper-violent reality that you can see in South Africa. And he's saying that that's their vision. After they do reparations, it would accelerate until that, and that's really their goal. And so South Africa, for those who don't know, is like, I mean, if you're white, I mean, you just got a target on your back, like 24/7, 365.
Yeah, my doctor's from South Africa, so he fled South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is Harrison's been ahead of the curve because him and Alex have been interviewing a guy from South Africa, Simon Roche.
Hmm.
He runs a like a mutual defense, almost like a private militia called Sudlanders.
That's cool, man.
You can look them up on Twitter, and you read about them online, and they're touted as like this white nationalist, white separatist, all the various pejoratives that you throw around to whenever white people decide to collectivize for their own self-interest. But I remember several of these interviews. I'm surprised he hasn't been on Alex's show in the last few days, considering that this has been in the news. I hope the guy's okay. He was always a very good interviewee to listen to. But he said that back in the Nelson Mandela days, he was a member of the ANC. He was a registered African National Congress. He truly believed in the Rainbow Coalition, Rainbow Nation, all of this stuff. And then things just started to go to shit. And then people like Julius Malema got out there with his "kill the Boer" rhetoric, and he's like, "Oh shit! Now I've got a target on my back." And so he was one of the co-founders of Sudlanders, and they're basically, like I said, they're like a mutual defense type of organization where if you're one of these farmers out in the sticks and you feel like you're going to be attacked, or if you're bunkered down in your house and you are under attack, then if there's a Sudlanders chapter nearby, they can assist you maybe. And then they also do things like disaster preparedness and other stuff like that. It's been a while since I've checked in on any of the stuff that they do, but the stuff that they do, or at least did back in the days, it seemed like it was one of those things that was absolutely needed. And of course, it was demonized by the mainstream media. I I do believe that these 60 refugees that have been brought into the country, the left is having an absolute aneurysm over them, and them being white is certainly a large component to it, especially to your ground level, blue haired, shrieking retard on TikTok type. But I think that there's another layer to this, and I haven't heard anybody else say this. This is something that one of my shower thoughts that I came up with a day or two ago, is that for your ground level retards, it's all like, oh, you're giving preferential treatment to white people. How dare you? As if all white people in every nation on earth have the exact same amount of experience and privilege, as they'd call it. But for the upper echelon people, the string pullers, the Klaus Schwabs and the Alex and George Soros types, to those people, the thing that I think freaks them out the most of these white South African farmers coming in is that they are emblematic of the contrast of a good example. Because in this country, and actually in Western countries in general, the standard, if you will, for what makes an asylum seeker or a refugee are these uneducated, maladjusted, sociopathic, rapine marauders that come into your town or into your county or whatever, and just take and take and take as if anything is owed to them. They're a net drain on society. They don't assimilate, and in a lot of ways, the second generation that they end up popping out end up being even worse, because now they are a generation that's in between cultures. They don't belong to one or the other, so they this is a problem that Europe has experienced to a great deal with a lot of the North African and Middle East refugees that they've allowed in over the last few years. Is the first generation is, they can be kind of bad, but it's the second generation that is absolutely terrible in this regard, because they don't feel like they belong to either culture entirely. And so what's going to happen with these South Africans is they are going to come in. They are going to be self-sufficient within 3 to 6 months. They're going to be off of all government welfare and assistance. They are probably going to be landowners within a decade, and they're going to be doing what they were doing in South Africa and farming. And when you can see that a refugee, a legitimate asylum seeker, somebody who is under the threat of genocide, can be this, suddenly what you are expected to believe they are doesn't necessarily look so good. And people start asking, well, why are we bringing these people in?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's a way better example of a refugee. And hopefully this is not the last batch of South Africans. I mean, it's gotten totally out of control. And remember, in Donald Trump's first term, he said, "Why do we always bring people from shithole countries?" And he was
Yep.
basically telling the people who run this stuff, "You can't find better candidates to bring to this country." And here we go. These are great candidates because and how do we know how do we know this is the right choice? Because the government of South Africa said they're cowards fleeing racial justice.
Hmm.
Like, so they wanted them to sit there and suffer. They basically admitted it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason that the uppity ups, the people that are really pulling the strings, are so terrified of sort of a vibe shift in the expectations of what a refugee is because the social drain, the chaos, the inability to assimilate to the new culture, everything is the point because these people operate under a Cloward and Piven deconstructionist mentality. They want the people who come in and become generational wards of the state. They don't want the self sufficient, educated, English speaking South Africans. They want the semi literate, non English speaking, sub 80 IQ Haitians and North Africans to come in.
Yes, I can tell you a lot about this because, believe it or not, Lebanon has been a target for this exact kind of attack 2 times in history. The first time was about 500,000 Palestinian refugees when Israel kicked them out of Palestine. Lebanon was the most welcoming to Palestinian refugees of all the neighboring countries, and the whole Arab League, or like a Muslim Arabic community of states, promised that they would help fund the refugees in Lebanon, and no one gave any money. It was a total lie, and it was all this conspiracy. And then they, exactly like what you said, when they bring these people in who can't assimilate, what they do is they put them in their own little ghettos. They put them in enclaves, and when they have them in their own little ghetto, in their own little enclave, they can control what information is given to them. They can completely craft an alternative reality through controlling what information is given to this enclave, because there's a language barrier, and they have control over what information is given to them. So they can create a ticking time bomb in these enclaves to trigger them to riot or rebel or whatever it is they want, whenever they want. And so there was an entire lost generation of Palestinian children in Lebanon who did nothing but cause trouble, who did nothing but become criminals or indoctrinated into terrorist organizations or just generally bad stuff. A whole generation of them ended up basically having to get killed in order for their reign of terror to end.
Hmm.
And now, round two, they tried the same thing again with, this time, 1 million Syrian refugees after Obama and Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Israel unleashed ISIS. ISIS caused 1 million Syrian refugees to enter Lebanon, a country of only 4 million. So Lebanon became the largest per capita refugee place in the world, where 33% of the population approximately was a refugee. And the Lebanese people, in order to deal with this without losing their identity, because the elites, the World Bank, the UN, the IMF, they said, we're going to stop giving the Syrian refugees their free debit card where they have food to eat. We're going to cut that off unless you give them citizenship. They tried to force them to be assimilated, which would erase the identity of Lebanon entirely, and have these refugees eventually essentially take over the whole country. And so what the Lebanese people did is they didn't let these foreign refugees into the normal school system. They had normal Lebanese school for Lebanese kids, and then they had a second shift of school for Syrian kids, and they kept them separate. And they had, believe it or not, the Lebanese army went and checked on the location of every single refugee every single night. They had to check in with the army, and they had like no rights. Like, if they committed any crime, they would just be dealt with very harshly, very severely, and very suddenly. And these are the methods that Lebanon had to use, because we saw what happens when there's a lost generation of mass influx of refugees, and the kids aren't educated, and given a way to assimilate or have jobs or anything like that. This is a weapon. These people are being weaponized. There's no question about it. And so forcing them to go to school, forcing them to not be criminals, and forcing them not to get citizenship, these are some of the methods that were used. And the UN and all these elites, they tried to force Lebanon through many different threats to give them citizenships. And to this day, the 500,000 Palestinians that were forced into Lebanon in the way back, this would be 40s, 50s, 60s, they were forced into Lebanon way back. To this day, Lebanon refuses to give them citizenship because if Lebanon gives them citizenship, according to international law, they lose their legal right to return to their home country. And so it's like a trick that Israel and everyone wants these people to be permanently accepted into Lebanon so they no longer have a legal claim to execute their legal right on their property deeds of the land that they were displaced from forcibly and illegally. They have their property deeds of their land in Palestine. But if we give them Lebanese citizenship, all that's gone, and they'll just assimilate into Lebanon. So Lebanon has been dealing with this weaponized migration stuff for a long time. And Americans have to realize you should not put them in school with our kids. That's going to destroy both the kids.
Yeah.
So why are they targeting Lebanon? I mean, I know a little bit of the history of Lebanon. They've had a rough 40 years. I mean, are they worried they're finally getting their shit together, so they want to disrupt them? Or
yeah, so Lebanon, if you go back to like the 50s and the 60s, Lebanon was a very rich place. It was like the neutral ground where like in the Cold War, after World War II, Soviet and Western diplomats and spies could go hang out in the same cafe in peace, in security, in a luxury setting, in a nice setting, and do deals, communicate, hang out. And that gave Lebanon like a Switzerland of the Middle East or Paris of the Middle East type vibe. It was like a Riviera of the Middle East. When Donald Trump says he wants to make Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East, it's funny because that's what Lebanon was and kind of still is. They already have one, but they don't like Lebanon because Lebanon is the home to the world's most powerful non-state actor. So the world's most powerful civilian militia is in Lebanon, and their missile arsenal is so big, despite it being outlawed by the world powers, it's ranked number 6 on the earth. So there's only 5 countries, there's only 5 entities on earth, which are states, that have missile arsenals at the level equal to or above the citizens of Lebanon. So the citizens of Lebanon, a citizen militia in Lebanon, has a missile arsenal that's larger in number and quality than every single entity on earth except for 5. So they have a lot of problems with Lebanon.
And we take pride in our Second Amendment.
Yeah, Second Amendment's big over there. Second Amendment's big over there. Yeah, it's real big over there. It's very libertarian because the federal government collapsed in Lebanon and so basically they did all these bad things to Lebanon to try to weaken Lebanon, and it's all backfired. Everything they've done to weaken Lebanon has actually strengthened Lebanon. So they had a corrupt system so that Lebanon wouldn't develop. So that even the electricity system was corrupt and over expensive and not very reliable. And they would cut off the electricity for half of the day, every single day. And so in response to that, every 2 or 3 houses would pool their money together and buy a super big generator, like a diesel generator. And so what ends up happening now today, Lebanon has an entirely decentralized power grid that entirely runs on every 4 or 5 houses is just on one big generator. And so even though Israel tries to bomb the infrastructure of Lebanon, they literally can't. So Israel in the recent war with Lebanon, Israel was out of power many times and Lebanon was not because there's no way to turn it off because it's decentralized. And so it's kind of like your immune system goes up when you keep getting infected. It's the same thing with a society. Everything they keep doing to the society, it radicalizes people. They've like January 6th radicalized Americans. Trying to kill Donald Trump. That's just going to radicalize Americans, wake them up to the real danger they're threatening. So they have all these evil plots, but it really backfires. If they left people alone, people would just be complacent and watching the NFL. But they made the NFL really annoying. Now people don't like it as much. You see what I mean? So they keep messing with people, and it actually backfires. Like just look at us and all the patriots that in this giant patriot community in the United States. They're so awakened to the elites now. The dinosaur media is powerless against us at this point.
All I wanted to do was be left alone and grill.
Yeah, exactly. Chilling and grilling, dude. Exactly.
Not harassed by Globo Homo.
Yeah. Hey, you can only grill a cricket powder steak. You know what I mean? It's got to be cricket powder.
Have you seen that? There was a guy. I
I'm
don't want to
still
like
not
steer.
sure if it's satire. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I shared it to the group chat, but there was this thing that popped up on Twitter where this guy was doing the soy face, and it was like, "Join me as I make a 100% what was like 100% sustainable cookout or something." And he's like making bug burgers, and he's using a solar powered electric griddle, and and he's the whole time he's doing things, he's like chopping his vegetables and like soy face into the camera and everything, and it's just like
That's
it,
awesome, man. I
and
hope that's a meme.
like Ben said, it's very Poe's law. You don't know if it's satire or if this guy's being serious
Yeah.
because it's very
No, I mean,
dystopian.
me and Harrison have written satire and like done satire skits like a lot, and it's getting harder, man. Some of the most insane things that we've come up with turn out to be 100% real and happen. We
Yeah,
can't even make satire anymore.
yeah. It's like what was it? Seth Dillon, the guy that runs the Babylon Bee. He's like, we've gone from being a satire page to a Nostradamus page or something like that.
Yes,
like
yes.
yeah, we do a story and then 2 weeks later some weirdo in the government makes it come true.
For real, for real. It's
Yeah,
so hard to do comedy now. It's so hard.
yeah, but
Well, back to the South African thing too, real quick. What I thought an interesting point that somebody brought up was the Zulu aren't even, they're not native to that region. They
That's
they
right.
migrated down from the East African coast, maybe within the last 1,000 years. And I'm still trying to figure out what the cutoff is for considering somebody native, like that tweet that Matt Walsh had. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah. So
I think majority of Black people in South Africa moved there to enjoy the benefits of the infrastructure and rich country that the Boers or Dutch, the Dutch folk, the white Dutch folk, what they built. That's
yeah,
they showed up to a mostly empty land. Like that's an important thing for people to realize. Africa is absolutely massive and mostly empty. Like there's no reason that they have to take the farm from a white guy when there's literally tons of empty space all over that they could just make their own farm. Like it makes no sense.
yeah. The land that the Boers and then later the English settlers came into was open and it was empty, and there was nothing growing on it because the very few people that lived there hadn't invented agriculture yet.
Exactly.
They were mainly nomadic hunter gatherers, and then the settlers came and they developed the land, they tilled it, they brought in irrigation and
Right.
agriculture, and then like you said, all of these tribes started moving south to be like, oh shit, something important is being done here. And the Zulu, like Ben said, they're a recent import. They were a very martial civilization that kind of wiped out all of the other tribes and moved in, and there was wars fought between them and the settlers. And nowadays, I was listening to a Alex interviewing a guy a couple of days ago where, despite all the past differences, the one group of black Africans that is most likely to come to the aid of the farmers would be the Zulu.
That's
Because,
insane.
yeah, and because they have a martial honor culture. They're very like warrior centric, and they see the idea of expropriation of the land and murdering these people, and basically everything that communism stands for, which is what the ANC and the EFF are all about, is Marxism and communism. They see that as very underhanded and dishonorable.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the Zulu would probably be the best allies to come to their aid. Also in South Africa, there's a place called Orania. Have you guys heard about that?
Mm-mm.
yeah.
So Orania is a city, and it is a white separatist city where
Okay. I actually talked
you
to a guy from there on Telegram. I actually was friends with him.
yeah,
I know what you're talking about now, and he actually hated Anglo Saxons because the Anglos betrayed the Boers in the Boer War. So that's
mhm,
something that a lot of people don't know. These Dutch guys, the British Empire or whatever it was, the Anglos, somehow sided with the commies and the I don't know. It's a weird history, but they're definitely not friends. And so a lot of people think that Elon Musk is a Boer. He's not. He's actually an Anglo.
Yeah. And I saw an interview with it was actually, I think it was Elon's brother, because it looked like Elon, but it wasn't Elon. So I assume it was his brother. And he was talking about how he's like, if you think the blacks and the whites hate each other, the Anglos and the Boers in South Africa really hate each other.
Right. And the guy who was from that separatist Boer, Dutch settler colony or whatever, he could explain it really well. And he was basically saying that, the Anglos sided against them and betrayed them. And
I'm gonna guess because they wanted the land. I suppose.
I'm not sure because they didn't even take the land. So the British Empire. See, he's calling them Anglos, but it's important to remember that the leadership of the British Empire is a single royal family that is not actually British ethnically or even Anglo ethnically. They're from Transylvania, and the British royal family is not ethnically from the British Isles. And so,
Yeah.
we really shouldn't speak in racial terms for these evil monsters. You know what I mean?
Well, geez, who knows their race? They're so inbred. They got their own.
Yeah.
They got their own thing going on.
Some type of reptile.
But yeah, so it's important. So a lot of people say Elon Musk is like bored or he's a South African white guy. Well, he was on the other team as these refugees actually, but now he's standing up for them, which is good. I do appreciate that. Anybody with any common sense should be standing up for these people. When the white farmers were kicked out of Zimbabwe, which is right next to South Africa, famine and starvation ensued. And when I debated this liberal guy about South Africa, the easiest thing to do was I just told ChatGPT, answer yes or no, would South Africa face famine if it wasn't for international aid of basically free food? The answer is yes. South Africa would face famine if it wasn't for free, gives me that.
Yeah. There was I don't know, I didn't check the numbers, but there was a thing I saw the other day on Twitter where it's like the white farmers in South Africa are responsible for like 90% of the wheat and
Yeah.
89.9% of and it was just a long list of all the staple crops and everything. And it's like you get rid of these people, when the government expropriates the land, or they send some thug under cover of darkness for plausible deniability to murder the people that are on the land, the people that they then give the land to don't know how to work the land.
It's just not their
And
culture. They've done that. There's crazy DNA evidence that these people who are currently in Africa actually are not the original inhabitants of Africa, and they came in like a wave, and their whole culture is like raiding culture, like military aggressive spreading, and so it's not a culture of infrastructure building, and that they're not
right.
necessarily the original people of Africa, but they're just like what spread and took over.
Could it be that they are the sea people that caused the Bronze Age collapse?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, but yeah, that one of the things I think on Tuesday Harrison was talking. I don't know if it's he said it or somebody he was interviewing said it, but he said that like of all of the tribes that have come into that area, none of them have a word for the concept of maintenance.
Right.
And that's why everything is just falling apart. It's just like, the stuff just springs up out of, and it rings eternal or whatever. It's like, no, you have to take care of your shit. And it's like the concept of maintenance is foreign to them because they literally have not invented a word or a series of words to describe what it means to take care of something that you own.
Yeah, it's their culture, man. Every problem in Africa can be solved by running. You're thirsty? Go run. You're hungry? Run. There's a danger coming? Run. It's a giant landmass with infinite wealth if you just run to go get it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hold it against them that they were never out of the hunter-gatherer. Why would you get out of the hunter-gatherer phase if you just run a quarter
So
mile
it's
and
all right there.
kill
Whatever you
something?
need.
And yeah, it's all right there.
Infinite
Yep.
food. Infinite whatever.
Same with the Native Americans here in the States. I mean, why would they
Yeah.
advance to a higher level when they have everything they could possibly ever want?
Right. And we have the ability to actually go back in the records, and the Native Americans literally said that, where they criticized the white man and told the white man, why don't you just trust in the infinite bounty of nature and just enjoy it? And they kind of had a point. I mean, America is such a rich continent that if you don't kill the buffalo, literally there's free food all over the place. So yeah, I mean it's just the nature of being from Northern Europe where there's no sun and you can't grow any food for 6 months out of the year. You have to be disciplined. You have to be organized in order to survive. And so it's just different cultures, and genetics and cultures, go hand in hand.
It's that RK selection theory that used to be popular like 6 or 7 years ago, and in the right wing red pill sphere.
I'm not familiar with that one, but
I don't.
there's this book, Guns, Germs, and Steel,
Oh yeah.
which I think is probably not that accurate. So I'm gonna go ahead and say right now, don't believe that stuff. Um, it's a lot of it is genetic, and your genetics is formed by the land that you come from, and so genetics and your land, where you come from, is hand in hand. There's no separating them. The land almost like formed the genetics of the people.
Hmm.
It's so that these are just the facts, and it can upset people. But I know this stuff. Uh, it's very obvious to me because I was the only Lebanese kid in school growing up in America. So I didn't grow up in an ethnically homogeneous environment. I grew up as the one guy of a totally different genetic background in my environment. So it was very obvious to me that DNA matters. Your genetics affects everything. And that was pretty obvious to me growing up. But if you grow up in a ethnically homogeneous environment, you could be persuaded that, oh, we're all the same because you didn't experience that.
Yeah, and you can even make the argument that not only does the land form you into a person, but you as a person will also instinctively seek out that type of land. You can take a look at the settlement patterns here in the United States. Like you take a look at the Great Lakes area; it's largely populated by Scandinavians.
Right. And it looks like
Um,
Scandinavia.
and it looks like Scandinavia. Exactly. The joke that I heard one time, it was like we landed on the shores of America and we started heading west, but we were drinking the whole time, and so we kept drifting right until we got to a place that looked like home and said, "We're home."
That's awesome, man. Yeah, Central Texas is a bunch of Germans and Czechs, and it literally looks exactly like Germany. In fact, there's a town in Central Texas called Weimar, like, Weimar Republic, Germany.
Hmm.
It's literally called Weimar. It was settled by Germans, and it literally looks like Germany, and they're still there to this day.
Yeah, same thing here in. Oh, did we
Oh,
lose him?
yeah, he bonked out.
Uh oh.
We'll
Well,
get
maybe
him
he.
back in here though. No, I thought it was surprising when you said about the Great Lakes. I mean, we're not. I mean, Nebraska's pretty white, but we're not nearly as white as Wisconsin. It's just kind of weird to me to go to some place where it's all white people.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're talking about this. It's kind of the same thing here in Nebraska. The town that I grew up and went to school in. It's Worms, like Worms, Germany,
Right, right.
because it
Awesome.
was it was settled by a bunch of German settlers that came in and plopped this little town down in the middle of the Great Plains. At the time, I imagine that it was just some gently rolling grasslands or whatever. But we got places like that. A few miles up the road is a Danish town called Dannebrog,
That's awesome.
which so it's all the same. It looks like Central Europe out here.
Yeah,
Just
no, that's really cool, man. And so there's Mediterranean people, which Mediterranean people have been like living in cities and dealing with like
mhm.
politics and power machinations and war and commerce since like way back. So it's a classic Mediterranean thing, and all Mediterranean people kind of have that in common, and that's just part of the culture. It's just there's a difference between, and doing business is part of learning how to do business in the international setting. You got to know the culture of who you're dealing with. Like if you go to Saudi Arabia, you don't bring them whiskey as a gift because they don't drink in Saudi Arabia, and that's just part of life, of just learning different cultures, how to deal with
Mhm.
different people, how to speak their language in the way they understand. And if you're trying to do business, this is just part of life. That's just a part of life. It's not being racist. It's not being discriminatory. It's not hating anybody. It's just acknowledging that obviously God has made us different. You know what I mean?
Well, and Matt Walsh's comment though, it was like, how long does somebody have to be somewhere to be considered native? I think America is getting such a defined culture that, you know, there's going to be an American, even genetically, going forward, and the
Probably.
culture type.
There is. Once you travel to Europe, once you travel anywhere,
Oh yeah, I have
they
European
spot you.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah, they spot you. They say, "Oh, you're an American." Yeah, it's obvious.
Well, and if kind of circling back to kind of put a bow on the South African discussion thing, the white South Africans have been there long enough to organically develop their own language.
Wow.
And if that isn't an indicator for being able to call somebody a native of an area, then I don't know what is.
That's a pretty strong indication for sure. I think it's. I think that if the land was empty beforehand, I think that at that point, you can't say anything because they weren't doing anything with it. It's not like they took it from someone. They took it from no one. So it doesn't. I just don't
Yeah.
agree with. I mean, if I go to the middle of nowhere and build something, and then 400 years later someone tries to take it, that they're just jealous. That's all that is. They're just jealous.
Yep. Right. So I think that's a good place to kind of end the white South African
Yeah.
thing. They definitely refugees. They are definitely under threat of genocide. They are definitely native to that area. And if they want to come here, they should be allowed to because they fit the definition of refugee
Yeah.
or asylum seeker, more accurately, asylum seeker.
For sure.
So yeah, the one that's been kind of burning up the airwaves over the last few days has been this 8647
Right.
comment that Jim Comey was stupid, calculating, whatever,
Yeah.
to put out onto the internet.
That's a pretty weird guy in general. It's a
He is. He's very weird. So surface level, drumming up some type of a political controversy, because this 8647 thing did not start with him. This has been something that has grown in some popularity since the Antifa weirdos started doing their Tesla riot shit. 8647, and of course, the term 86 has been around since like the 20s or 30s, and so 8647. Jim Comey is trying to drum up some controversy and some publicity because he is publishing his third fiction book, which can only be described as Projection, the novel. Because it's about a savvy female lawyer and a hard-boiled detective are tracking down an increase in right-wing extremism in New York, and it's just like, my eyes cannot roll any further into the
Man.
back of my head.
Is he okay? Like that guy, he's not okay. I'll tell you right now, that guy's not okay. He's really emotionally like scarred from what he's been through. He's just too weird, man. I don't like that guy.
Right. So he put the 8647 in some seashells on the seashore, and
That's too weird, man.
right, and he posted on Instagram like, "Oh, I found this interesting shell formation." It's like, dude, you didn't find it, you made it. Quit being obtuse. And on surface level, he's trying to drum up some controversy for his new book. It gets a little bit deeper when you realize that the Trump administration is not playing idly with these threats.
Yeah.
Especially considering that this is the former director of the FBI. He still has friends. He still has connections. He still has a lot of pull in a lot of places. But what takes it even further into your tinfoil hat realm is the fact that not only was it surface level, the 8647, he also posted it on the 8,647th day since 9/11.
Right. And he
And
was
if
one
you
of the main prosecutors of the 9/11 whole fiasco.
Yes, the odds of that being a coincidence are so astronomical that I would put it into an impossibility.
Right. I don't like the smell of this at all because what that's basically saying is that the faction behind the 9/11 false flag is the same faction behind trying to kill Trump.
Yeah. So to me, this is sending two different messages to two different audiences. On the one hand, 8647, it's going to be like a little sly wink to the, the screeching weirdos on TikTok that, oh, former FBI directors part of the resistance,
Yeah,
and
like
he's going to
Blue Q, or what do you call it? The Blue QAnon, whatever it's
blue
called.
anon,
Blue Anon.
blue
That's
anon,
kind of what
yeah.
that is, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's that little dog whistle to the Blue Anon base, where Jim Comey's on our side, and the resistance is still alive and well, and we still have friends in high places. And like you said, the 8,647th day since 9/11, I think, is a coded message that we got away with one big attack on America. We can get away with a second one.
Oh, I don't like that at all, especially because we're in false flag season to drum up a war against Iran, to increase public support against Israel's enemies, which is really what 9/11 was about. So that's
Yep.
bad news. That's really dark.
Yeah. So that's my reading on it.
That-
Ben, you got something to add?
Well, I've noticed that the left's really grabbed onto the 8647 chant. There's a bunch of ding dongs here that get out and protest every weekend, and they were all holding signs saying 8647.
What the heck, man?
So what are they calling for?
What
Is
the
it,
heck?
I don't think it's an impeachment.
No, no. I have to mention, by the way, the like the deputy of the FBI. I think it's the deputy under Kash Patel. He said that James Comey is going to go to jail for this.
That was Ed Martin, and he's the current interim prosecutor of D.C.
Nice.
I read that, or I heard that exact same thing too, because he said that right now, Jim Comey he's got two paths that he can take once he gets indicted for this, and he's setting himself up into a perjury trap. The first path is that he can go in and he can say, yes, I know what that means, and I put that out there anyways, at which point you can get charged for threatening the life of the president of the United States, and that's at least 5 years in jail. Or two, he can go out there and be like, no, I had no idea what that meant, at which case the prosecution can come be like, well, here's 1,000 pieces of evidence that say to the contrary, that you knew exactly what that was, and now you're going to jail for perjury. The Secret Service has paid him a visit.
Mhm.
I think I saw on Alex's Twitter feed today that he's actually been arrested. He might be in some type of detainment right now. And the Secret Service also visited Ed Krasenstein, that
Right.
pustule on the ass end of Twitter.
Yeah. What did he do again? I just saw that on X. What was it again?
Oh, same thing. He arranged some billiard balls in the 8647
Oh,
and posted it online. So,
Well,
yeah.
and we've talked about this too, how the left uses the mainstream media to get those messages out there where, we might have to organize in a signal chat for anything, and they just put something out in the media and it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So now they've put out the message, you guys need to 8647. Who's going to do it?
Yeah. That's the message that's out there. They idea launder through white papers in the mainstream media.
That's a great point, man. That's a great point. So they're hoping some crazy will do it, or I don't know. It's dark, man, because now they've associated it with 9/11 and the cover up of 9/11. So Donald Trump is pretty famous for coming out in the media.
Yeah,
and
that
saying,
video.
Yeah, and saying like immediately that, hey, those planes couldn't knock down those buildings. I know for a fact the guy who built those buildings works for me, and I know those buildings. So Donald Trump was not part of that conspiracy. Donald Trump was not in the club of the 9/11 false flag, and James Comey definitely was. And so now you're combining these two conspiracies of trying to assassinate Donald Trump or just being against Donald Trump, and the Blue Anon conspiracy with the same people who did the false flag, for 9/11 and cover up 9/11. So what does that mean? That means that Donald Trump kind of is a good guy by default. That would mean that Donald Trump is our guy. I mean, he kind of has to be at that point.
Right. Trump visited Ground Zero and paid for a lot of the rescue workers. He put a lot of money and a lot of his own people on Ground Zero, just out of his own pocket to do things on 9/11. And, we're kind of getting into a nice segue into kind of the crux on why I wanted to have you on tonight. And that is Donald Trump's apparent decoupling from Israel.
Oh, I thought you were going to lean into Israel did 9/11. I was like, all right.
No, well, the thing is that his heel turn towards Israel was as sudden as his heel turn towards Ukraine. Excuse me, gosh, towards Ukraine. And I'm beginning to think that maybe his administration has uncovered something either in the Epstein files or in regards to a big event like 9/11 or perhaps his assassination attempts, that maybe Israel was involved in some way, whether it was directly involved in a sort of let it happen / make it happen capacity, or involved in a way like withholding critical information that would have prevented it from happening.
The assassination attempts, you mean?
Or 9/11, or the involvement with Epstein, or any of it, or all of it.
Well, their involvement with 9/11 is kind of established because they had the dancing Israelis, right?
Yeah.
So they had foreknowledge at the minimum, and then there's a lot of other evidence, but not to mention that they're the direct benefiter of the whole thing, because it just made Americans want to.
I love when that stuff starts spreading around on Instagram and people have never heard it are like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
some people don't even know
crazy.
about Building 7. They're like, wait, how did this one fall? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just important to explain to people that there's the reason why any of this would be the case. Okay, it's not because I hate Jews. The reason why any of this would be the case is because there is a conspiracy for a prison planet, a conspiracy for a one world government and one world religion, and this is the path to do it. And that's really the important thing to understand. I'm not being prejudiced or picking on one particular group. There are deep state actors in nearly every government on earth, if not every government on earth. And these deep state actors, they're all on the same agenda. So it's not about picking on Jews or picking on Israel. The United States had to be complicit in every single detail of 9/11. It's not like you can just blame Israel, right?
Right.
The United States government has complete control over the United States airspace. Like, you can't completely blame Israel. That would make no sense. So the truth is that Israel is being used as a character in a play, and the Jews are unfortunately going along with that, whether they like it or not. They're being forced to go along with that. And if you're a Jew and you stand up to this, the videos coming out of Israel of the way the police beat the Jewish protesters getting beat by the Israeli police. It's totally crazy. I mean, you're not allowed to stand up against this agenda, whether you're in a Muslim country and you're standing up against the Muslim component of this agenda, they totally destroy you. Or if you're a Christian and you're not a Zionist, if you're a Christian and you're not Catholic or Zionist, they don't want you. If you're a Muslim and you're not going along with mainstream Islam, they don't want you. If you're Jewish and you don't go along with Zionism, they don't want you. So it's basically whoever is independent has a target on their back, because they're building up for this big reveal of the one world government and one world religion, where they want everything locked down. They want everyone lined up and ready. They're trying to get all their ducks in a row for this one world religion and one world government. Now, a lot of people think that Donald Trump is part of that. But the thing is, if Donald Trump was part of that, then he should have been part of the 9/11 conspiracy. He should not be enemies with people like James Comey. James Comey is literally an agent of the deep state. There's no question about it. And he wants Donald Trump to be killed. So Donald Trump is clearly throwing a wrench in this agenda. And so him decoupling from Israel, the beautiful thing about it, the best way to explain it, is Donald Trump probably just flat out asked his advisors, hey, why do we got to go along with whatever Israel says? Well, they got a lot of money, they got a lot of influence, they control this and that. Okay, well, don't the Arab Gulf states also have a lot of money? Why don't I go over there, right? It's a typical Trump move. Say, hey, these guys got a lot of money too. I'm going to go over there. They're going to give us a ton of money. If Israel wants to influence us that much, they got to, give us a bunch of money. And it's like a donation contest where it's like, okay, you want influence? Let's see how much you're going to do for us. You know what I mean?
Okay, now he needs to claim AIPAC's what is that, a foreign
yeah,
foreign agent,
but that's what got JFK killed. That's dangerous.
It's one
Well,
of the
then,
many components that have got JFK killed. We did an entire episode on JFK.
Right.
It's like who killed Kennedy? It's like, well, at this point, who fucking didn't kill
Who wasn't
Kennedy?
part of it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, was it the mob? Was it the Russians? Was it the Cubans? Was it the Israelis? Was it our own CIA? And the answer is like, yes.
Yeah. Every power structure to kill the president, you got to have a lot of people sign off on such a project, and to cover it up as well. So there's no question about it. Him going after the Israeli nuclear project is no doubt a big reason. Going after AIPAC, the precursor to AIPAC, I think it was called American Zionist Congress, something like that. They changed their name right after JFK got killed. So
let's do a rebrand, guys.
yeah, they had to do a rebrand. So the funny thing about it is that AIPAC donates to all these congressmen. You could say AIPAC owns Congress. Let's just say AIPAC owns Congress.
Except Massey.
Except Massey. Yeah, I love Massey. Well, here comes Donald Trump, and he's just like the enemy of Congress. He's just like, screw you, Congress. Here's my agenda. And he's playing the Trump card, where it doesn't even matter how much money AIPAC donates to Congress. He's not listening to Bibi. He's not consulting with Bibi. He's doing peace negotiations with Iran against Israel's wishes. He's going to the Arab Gulf countries, and he's not demanding they normalize ties with Israel. And he's taking tons of donation, which equals influence from these Arab Gulf countries. He's bringing investment from them into the United States. He talked about the Iron Dome, calling it the Golden Dome. He's talking about that with the Arabs. He's not even talking about that with the Israelis. So he's literally showing them that even though you pay for Congress, you don't control everything. And
Right.
Despite all their donations to Congress, so what? So what? They didn't stop his negotiations with Iran. They managed to negotiate directly with Hamas and get an American citizen released without asking Israel's permission or consulting Israel on it at all.
Yep.
So what about AIPAC? You see, he's just overriding it. That's what Trump can do. Trump has that power.
Yeah. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Netanyahu is even prior to the October 7th attack and the various atrocities that he's had his government and his army commit in the preceding months. He's not exactly the most popular person over there,
right,
in Israel.
No.
And I believe that the October 7th attack and having the United States kind of being in the eyes of the public the guy that has the United States on our side, kind of the intermediary between Israel and the United States, was about the only thread that was having him hold on to any semblance of respectability and power over there. And now that Trump is just kind of ADD wandered off into the desert, so to speak, towards the Gulf Arab states, Bibi's hand is looking mighty thin.
Absolutely. That's why it's time for a false flag. That's exactly right. They put him in a desperate situation. In order to regain that influence, he really has to do a false flag. It's got to be a 9/11 type thing. That's why this James Comey thing is so unsettling, because it's like, what if they kill Donald Trump and blame Iran? They already said the Iranians have crossed into the United States through the open border with anti-aircraft guided missiles. They've already said that. And then here comes this whole fiasco with Air Force One, where Donald Trump is refusing to use the old one and is instead getting this brand new one from the Arabs, right? And so Israel is so upset about that. People like Laura Loomer and all these other Israelis or Jews or whatever, they're so upset that Donald Trump is taking this jet from the Arabs. Why is that exactly? You got to remember, so many important people die by their plane getting shot, their plane getting blown up, their plane crashing, because you can never really figure out how it happened. You can never really figure out who to blame, right? And they could create a narrative around that it was the Iranians. So if they kill Donald Trump and blame the Iranians, that's their exactly like 9/11, 86-47, just like a 9/11 false flag, where they kill Donald Trump, they get him out of the way, and they in the aftermath of that, there's this fervor and this storm to really pressure the United States government to blame Iran and to go after Iran. So these are the kind of dangers of Bibi being in a corner, because Bibi being in a corner is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation. And I think Donald Trump switching to this other plane is because he doesn't trust the deep state in the United States not to sabotage his plane.
Yeah. And I mean, they'd have the plausible deniability in there too, because Air Force One is as old as I am. It's 40 years old.
Right.
It's been needed to be replaced for a long time. So if that thing just suddenly fell out of the sky for no reason at all, it would be like, you could believe it.
Oh yeah.
Nobody would, if Donald Trump fell over and died of a heart attack tomorrow, nobody would believe that it was just a heart attack, even though he's, pushing 80 and he eats McDonald's every single day. Everybody'd be like,
Right.
the CIA got that
Heart
gun
attack
that
gun.
shoots the darts out of storage, didn't they?
Right.
Nobody would believe it.
100%.
But yeah, and so I think you're absolutely right. The new what do they call it, the palace in the sky that he got from the Qataris. That's yeah. And the thing, they're making such a big deal about it. It's like, oh, Donald, this is a bribe for Donald Trump. It's like, they didn't give it to Donald Trump. They gave it to the United States. Whoever's elected in 2028 is going to use the same jet, assuming that Boeing hasn't got their shit together yet and put together the new Air Force One by then.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't care about this whole, oh my God, they're bribing Donald Trump. It's like, y'all need to get with the program. Donald Trump is going over there saying, all right, what you guys got for me? You know what I mean? It's not even subtle. It's just like, you better give me a lot of stuff, And it's good. Like, that's what we wanted him to do. We want Donald Trump to go around and be like, hey, you guys need to, bring some stuff to America, bring some investment to America, give us some money. We're tired of giving everybody else money. It's time for people to give us money. And he completely convinced me when Donald Trump was like, hey, we could use some free stuff too. We give free stuff to everybody else. Why don't we get some free stuff back? That's all I had to hear. I'm completely convinced. I am completely convinced.
Yeah. Okay, well, the only other article that I had on the agenda for tonight was very disappointing that the Congress has decided to table the votes on the Doge cuts.
That is insane.
Which is insane to me, because those Doge boys, Big Balls and the boys, were combing through the federal budget for, they were like living in the office, sleeping on the floor, going, just night and day, going at it, finding billions and billions of dollars while the media lied about them. They were getting close to that $1 trillion goal that they had, despite all of the fighting and the injunctions and the legal battles and all of the other bullshit that they had to go through. They were doing a good thing and they were doing a good job at it, and they put the cut recommendations up to Congress, and Congress was like, nope, and threw it out the window. So all of that work, all of that fanfare could just completely gone. Because, see, people don't seem to realize that the Doge people, they didn't actually have the authority to cut anything.
Right.
All that they were doing was finding things that should be cut, because Congress has the power of the purse. Doge's job was to find the things to cut and present it to Congress, and Congress was supposed to cut it out. And Congress has shirked their responsibility to do so. So all of the bullshit that Doge has found, the USAID crap, the wasteful spending for globo homo trans surgeries in Peru, all of that bullshit that the U.S. government has been funding with your tax dollars in our name will continue apace.
At this point, I'm thinking just abolish Congress. I'm so sick of Congress at this point. I wouldn't even mind if Donald Trump was just straight up like, hey, it's my agenda now, whatever,
Yeah, I'm leaning towards a theocracy at this point.
Yeah, that's I was part of the community on Reddit that was the Donald. It was like the source of all the viral memes back in the 2016 elections campaign, and we used to call Donald Trump in that community the God Emperor God Emperor of the United States, GOTUS instead of POTUS. And it was a meme, the God Emperor of the United States. But at this point, if Congress is literally just that useless, and Mike Johnson being a huge disappointment lately as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, I just don't know what the purpose of these guys are at this point. They're all openly on the payroll of AIPAC. AIPAC is like, we have a 99% success rate, and we pay this. Like, it's in the open that a foreign group is literally running them. Like, what is the purpose of these guys? So it's a completely, and now with like blockchain technology, we could literally have the public vote directly with like a blockchain secured ID, and like it could aggregate the votes. Like, I don't need to send a guy to DC to vote
Right.
for me. Like, I have electricity. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need the paper in the mail to go to DC. Like, I think America could really be upgraded with changing this whole Congress thing, because them voting to continue the waste is a direct indication, like Elon Musk says, that means you're on the take. That means you're skimming off the top. That means you're part of the corruption. It's very suspicious.
Have an AI that aggregates the votes. Each state gets two AI that aggregate their votes and vote on it.
Yeah,
It'd be better than
let
the
the
corrupt,
Texas
bought out shit we have now.
exactly. Let's train an AI to be a Texas embodiment of Texas, embodiment of Illinois, embodiment of all these states. Let our AIs debate after it's trained on our like language model, and that would be some interesting stuff. Then politics would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is like, for all of the screaming about, that the idiots were doing about how Elon Musk is take his hands off our Social Security and all the other ridiculous nonsense that they were crying about while the Doge guys were combing through the federal budget code and everything. What is the purpose of them deciding that they are going to bunt on cutting this spending? Because once people actually see, get through all of the screaming and the histrionics, and people actually see the ridiculous shit that their tax dollars were going towards, Mike Johnson would come out looking like a hero if he and the congressional Republicans decided to cut all of that nonsense out. But instead, are their heads that far up their own ass? Do they just live in that tiny little beltway echo chamber bubble about like, what if it's not on CNN or any of this crap?
It's just because they're not scared of losing their reelection, because the elections are swayed by who AIPAC picks. So they're not worried about it. They're not scared. They're not scared of the people. They're scared of the AIPAC handler, and they're scared of AIPAC funding their opponent. And so that's who controls everything. If we the people make them lose their seats for this, then we would see the way that would change their tune. But the truth is that as long as AIPAC funds their reelection, they're good.
Yep. All right, we've been going on for about an hour and a half, and I could probably go on for another 2 hours or so. I know I told you that it would be an hour, but we've been going about 30 minutes over, and I'm getting some nasty grams from the wife about coming upstairs. I can hear our kid crying.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm gonna probably call it a night. I've been washing cars all day in the sun, so I should probably take a break here.
Yeah,
I actually like to watch cars indoors in a race car bed, but
that's awesome, man. We'll be racing in our sleep.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's always a pleasure to have us on, John. If people want to hear from you and hear what you have to say in a more regular manner, where can they find you?
Basically, I'm on X, Lebanon_Jon, and then me and Harrison try to do that live stream, Moonbase Live. But Harrison's he's live for 3 hours every morning, so it's hard for him to hop on it again. It gets pretty burnt out, but hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, I know. I watched you guys' last stream talking about the legal issues going on with Alex and Infowars, and that's always a drama. God, hope they figure that shit out sooner or later. So yeah, Lebanon_Jon on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and on Moonbase Live on Rumble. And if you guys out there enjoyed what you heard tonight, you can of course support us at our merchandise store at Roads number 2 Liberty.com, and you can get our affiliate link at thealexjonesstore.com/R2L. Get some supplements and knives and hoodies and shirts and hats and all sorts of fun stuff. Support Alex Jones and the InfoWars. Support Roads to Liberty. Support yourself with some health supplements. I started taking the Shilajit, and I'm starting to feel it now. So
nice.
4 days in, it's really, really good stuff. I'd recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, we'll have you on. We're starting to rotate some friends of the show through, so you'll be on again before you know it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, John.
Thank you.
Stay honky.